Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we are looking at the NBA Cup, game number 3 in this in-season tournament, which we're calling the NBA Cup this season. Going to be looking at some best bets. Got a few key players that are questionable. Not sure about Luka yet. Wemby does look like he's going to be out, doubtful, but that does seem to be trending towards fully out in this one for the second straight game. So definitely want to monitor those injury reports today as you're making those bets, but also want to make sure to like and subscribe to that page. We've got best bets in this episode and player props up in a separate one, bringing both of those to you each and every weekday moving forward throughout this season. So continue to follow along. Nate, let's go ahead and jump into your first best bet here for NBA Cup Tuesday.
Yeah, third night of the NBA Cup, second
Right.
game for some, just to be precise on that. But biggest game of the night, Cavs and Celtics. And rather than playing with the spread here at the end, I think just first quarter over is a good play. 58.5 points. These teams play differently at the outset. Specifically, the Celtics just play a lot faster in the first half. You've been attacking their first half spread a lot, but the over is usually good because they've been playing at a 102 pace their last 6 in the first quarter. Cavs have been playing at a 105 pace, blistering 37.5 points per game, including in their first NBA Cup game, 49 against Chicago. As we know, with the point differential, every point counts. I don't know if the NBA Cup situation is really going to supersede this just being a huge game and a revenge spot for the Cavs and a spot for the Celtics to hand them their first loss. And just both teams will come out, I think, giving it an absolutely blistering effort. I think the way the Cavs are playing under Atkinson is completely different than last year too, right? They're up from 22nd to 7th in pace, and obviously the most efficient offense in the league. And the pace in the half court is something that doesn't necessarily show up, but like they get into actions quick. They run good stuff. Garland is healthy, knocking stuff down. And on the other end, they might struggle to stop Boston. I mean, everyone struggles. It comes down to 3-point variance to some degree, but the Cavs have not been good in 3-point defense. Like they're great on the interior, but with those two bigs out there, it's hard for them to deny threes. And so they're giving up 38%. That's 28th in the league. On the road, 39% in their last 3. The Celtics haven't really like gotten up for a game since opening night. And that, I mean, if you look at the rest of their opponents, it just hasn't been anything to really like get their haunches up, right? But as we know what happened on opening night, they obviously go nuts. Isaac Okoro is out for this one, so definitely a plus for the Celtics for their big wings. I mean Okoro's questionable, not ruled out, but I don't know if he's going to go. Drew Holiday dealing with a little knee thing, and he has not been the defensive stopper that we've seen in the past so far this season. Again, the Celtics have only really brought it for one game, but in the playoffs last year, like this was still a pretty good number when these teams met, right? I mean, first game combined for 74 in the first quarter as Donnie Mitchell just came out on fire. They got to 54 plus in all 5, and that's in the playoffs where we know everything is much slower, much more defensively oriented. So I think 58 is a fine number here for the first quarter in this one.
Yeah, I think it's a good find. Looking at the matchup between these two teams and then coming out firing. Interestingly, the Celtics are not quite the first half team they were last year, where they were just like covering every single spread. It was like 62 covers in the first half for them last season, including the playoffs. And a lot of those were most of those were at home too. But either way, I mean, the offense should still be there for them. We know Jason Tatum's playing most of the first quarter, and most of the time, actually, all of the first quarter too. So you know you're going to have those stars out there, and Peyton P been getting in as well for that first quarter for almost half of it, which is a nice bump to the offense, not necessarily to the defense for the Celtics. But looking at the first play I've got here for best bets, Nate, I mean, I'm just going to keep it simple and go with OKC. They got to win by 10. This Spurs team is so heavily predicated on having someone who's 7'6" on the floor and changing everything for them. Without Wemby, I just don't trust the Spurs. I don't think that's a crazy, outlandish thing to say. This is already a very shooting oriented team, and Wemby honestly doesn't really help that when he's on the floor. He's taking a lot of shots, as we know, not a very good 3-point percentage. So maybe you think there's a little bit more efficiency from the shooting, but a lot of those open shots for those guys are predicated on assists. And a lot of that is coming from inside out stuff with Wemby. Obviously, Chris Paul getting into the lane and kicking it out, but also throwing those lobs to Wemby, which is why I'm not necessarily eyeing any kind of assist for CP3 in this game, and would be looking to fade him on the dimes. I think it was a pretty low number though at about 6.5. So I ended up staying away, but yeah, I don't like much of anything for his ability to find teammates against a team that can just drape all over you when you want to take jump shots. This is a team that's giving up the lowest field goal percentage on mid-range, lowest field goal percentage in the paint to its opponent as well, even without Chet. So this is just a disgusting defense that, like we've talked about, even without Chet or a center of any kind, with the tallest guy on their floor generally around 6'7" or so, they're still able to sort of corral worst rebounding team in the league. And so if right now and on the season at this point too, without Chet and even with Chet, at this point overall, just worst rebounding team in the league. If Wemby was out there, second chance points would be a problem. I would be a lot less likely to just back a double digit spread almost for this OKC team. But without Wemby, Zach Collins does not scare me on his rebound percentage individually. It's below 60% for his rebound percentage, so he's not really getting a lot of the rebound chances that he's not pulling down the rebound chances that he even gets when we see him on the floor, even when Wemby's in the game and he's coming in for those backup minutes. So there's not much to like right now for the Spurs without Wemby. They're too reliant on the inside-outside stuff. The highest, a very high percentage of their field goals that are assisted, as I mentioned, which is a huge part of that. So I'm just backing the Thunder to take this one. In the NBA Cup, I do feel like with point differential, we can bank on teams trying to make sure they win by as many points as possible.
Yeah, especially with the Thunder and Lakers eyeing each other right across the aisle, both double-digit favorites at the top of that group. And yeah, pretty close in point differential through one game. So I think they'll both try to blow out the opponent as much as possible. And then they play each other, and it's not for a week or so, but that'll be the huge game in this group. So no problem to lay in the points with the Thunder here. I mean, they're a team that blows people out regardless. And the Spurs being so shorthanded. This didn't move that much with Wemby being doubtful yet. I mean, maybe people will jump in on the Thunder, but I like it. And I also like just taking the money line with the Thunder, and parlaying it with the Nets money line in my best bet. I also lay a little bit here on Nets -3 against the Charlotte Hornets. But I think they get the win here. I think they're a bit undervalued because of who they've played lately. I mean, last 3 losses, the Knicks twice and Celtics. Last 5 losses, you just include the Celtics again and the Cavs. So like just playing the cream of the crop in the East all year. If you look at since they got Schroeder in the lineup in February, they're 9-3 at home versus the East, and 2 of those losses are against the Celtics. The only exception was that Sunday early start blip to Detroit earlier this season, but they have brought it at home against Eastern Conference teams, against worse teams, I guess you would say, first off. And the Hornets are not a good team. Lost 5 straight on the road, -13 net, 33% from 3, and a high volume shooting 3-point team that now faces a Nets team that runs you off the line, right? Still 3rd or 4th in 3-point attempts. They've done a pretty good job on LaMelo in his 6 career meetings against them. If they can keep these guys off the glass, that's really the key, right? The Hornets, they've depended on second chance points with all those threes. Diabate was all over the glass against the Bucks, and they're going to be without Nick Claxton here is the concern for the Nets. But I think we trust their depth in the front court. I mean, Zaire Williamson, Noah Clowney, Jalen Wilson, they've all been playing very well. Nets have surprising depth. They're going to probably open this game with Ben Simmons at the 5 and just kind of getting that pace up. And I mean, Trey Mann is questionable for the Hornets. I would worry about their offense without him. I mean, we saw in their first NBA Cup game, they lose by 25 without Miles Bridges, granted, but also without Trey Mann. So, I mean, it's kind of like if they're not in the cup, right? I mean, they're not even close on point differential here. I don't know how high the motivation will be for the Nets. They have 2 days off after this. And again, yeah, they've been protecting that home court. They've been very feisty since Schroeder kind of took on the identity of this team. And I think he gets into these dudes and the rest of them follow suit.
Yeah, I think he's good for the assist today. I don't expect that to hang around at 5.5. I think that's going to get tipped over into 6.5, and that's where the edge is kind of gone. But 5.5, even anything around even like -130, I'm fine with drinking the juice for him to get 6 dimes against this team as well. So yeah, I'm liking the Nets a lot moving forward here. I mean, I don't know how legit they are, but they're more legit than we thought that they were. I will say that. And if you claim otherwise, then congrats for getting ahead of that with the Brooklyn Nets. But let me close it out here. Look, Utah, LA, this should be just an easy over. It already got bet up 234.5. That's about where I would take it. The last number that I would take it at is 234.5. opened at 230. I still think, once again, I think we get the bump from the NBA Cup, the NBA Cup bump. There you go. That's what we're going to call it. Because, like, yes, Utah might be a team that is legit tanking, although pretty nice win the other day against Dallas. So I'll just say, like, yes, tanking, but still those random wins for Utah on a Saturday that sneak in under there. And I do think that there's something to the idea that they still want to showcase the guys they have if they're going to make moves for new guys. I don't think Keontae George is long for this team necessarily as like the future of it, unless they are willing to wait another like 3 years for that. So there's players like that I'm like, they're just like, put them out there. Let's get the ball rolling with these guys and see if we can at least like get them into trade pieces. As far as their pace, like they're still in the top 10 in the league in pace for Utah. They have been a little bit weirder when they're playing at home this year versus like years past, where this sort of seems like the splits are actually them playing a little bit better on the road, or at least scoring a little bit better on the road. But still, we get a home game. Utah, love LA playing in that situation. When they played at Utah last year, these teams were averaging about 236 in those games. This year, actually I should just say in the Cup in general, Lakers averaging about $122 in those Cup games. This is the Cup team. I mean, defending champs, I do think that they care. They've shown that, and LeBron James has shown that and been vocal about it. So that's where it's coming from, is they're like them leading the way here for this game with their pace of play, just keeping the Jazz completely back on their toes. I think also, you called it out before the show, like AD is definitely a good bet. There's no Walker Kessler in there. He's going up against John Collins and some form of Philip Kowski as well out there, which, by the way, I'm calling him Flip because who's got time to say Philip Kowski every time? Really good player. Keep an eye out for Philip Kowski as honestly a top 5 rook right now. But this is going to be a game where I'd be going under for Filipkowski if he's going to have to go up against AD, who I also think will be trying. I think you can take the over here. I think you can take the Lakers on the first half. I do think they continue to come out strong with AD, or like the first quarter, and he sort of asserts his dominance before LeBron takes over and sort of takes over in the second half with his rebounding and assisting. But I think points are still going to be good to come by with the Lakers doing the heavy bulk of the lifting, but getting 123, 124 for them around their team total makes me feel fine about 235 in the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Jazz probably come along for a nice high-scoring game, and the Lakers have been playing. They've just been so overextended defensively with everybody but AD. Maybe the way I think I'm going to try to bet this is AD 25 plus with an alt spread. I think get it down into single digits at 5.5 or 4.5. See where I can get the best price on that. Right now, looking at it, 25 plus points for AD is only minus 280 on FanDuel. And if you go up to 30 plus, then you're getting plus money with just the money line, sure. But the 25 plus seems like a lock in this matchup. 30 seems likely because, as you mentioned, Walker Kessler out. It should just be paper soft on the interior for Utah. Yep.
That's where we're at right now. And Walker Kessler honestly hasn't really done anything to dissuade people from going into the paint either against Utah. So that's a weak spot for them this season for sure. That's all the time we have in best bets on this little NBA Cup slate for Tuesday. Make sure to subscribe to that page. You can also check out the Playa Props episode we're bringing alongside these each and every weekday. And until we see you next, happy betting.